Hi again, and welcome back to the Lemon Dew podcast. I'm Brie, and in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the subject of autism, life admin, the problems with trying to manage life admin, and what you can do in order to make things as easier as you can for yourself. So without further ado, let's begin. So, life admin refers to everyday tasks that are overlooked, as well as invisible tasks, which are, I guess, a form of manual labour. So these tasks include taking care of certain responsibilities, whether it's paying your rent, your bills, your council tax, your loans, your mortgages, taking care of children, as well as dealing with childcare costs. The same thing applying to pets as well, handling grocery shopping, handling appointments when it comes to arranging them over the phone, face-to-face, email, answering phone calls, texts, etc. Now, when it comes to life admin, it requires time and effort in order for everyday tasks to be completed. And whilst some neurotypical individuals have a hard time managing life, for autistic individuals, it's even worse because the tasks that you have to do, and I almost forgot to include chores as well, because that counts as a part of life admin, can be very overwhelming and very difficult. And this applies especially if you work. So if you're working full time, say 35 plus hours a week, which is the average for full timers in the UK, the main issue is that you're exhausting your time and you're exhausting your energy, because when you really look at life in general, you actually notice that you spend more time than you think working, not just in terms of actually doing tasks at work in relation to your job, but of course you also have the additional preparation in terms of getting up, getting dressed, making sure your teeth are brushed, having to make breakfast, having to drop the kids off if you've got children. And then, of course, there is also the addition of making sure you've got all your things ready for work. Now, the problem is with work in itself, you realise that a 7+ hour work week becomes a 10+ hour work week, because besides the preparation, you also have the commute. And for most people, like myself, commutes can often average from an hour plus door to door. So for example, looking at my job, it's a full-time 36-hour-a-week job, and I have to commute for 2 hours every single day, which accumulates to basically 10 hours a week, which can accumulate to 40 hours in a month. And this mostly depends on whether there are bus or train delays, because with public transportation, it's very unpredictable, because if one line has an issue, then maybe the other doesn't. But then if it's your line, then it's a problem when you're trying to get in, and it's a problem when you're trying to get out. So basically, there are no options. And of course, when it comes to life admin, that is when coming home from work, it's very difficult to manage. So sometimes when I come home, I feel so tired, especially when doing late nights, that I don't have the time to do much besides maybe showering, eating and going to bed, because that's all I want to do, especially because with work, it's taken up too much of my day. And because I have a tendency to exhaust myself quickly, it just makes things worse, because half the time, due to masking and other circumstances, I feel like a phone battery where my energy just depletes very quickly, especially when I haven't had enough time to recharge. And this is the thing, is for a lot of autistic people who are in a similar position, there is no time or energy to actually recharge, especially if you're like myself, where you work in a heavily social job that involves talking to the general public as well as colleagues and managers. Now, when it comes to life admin, the exhaustion in general just causes pure disorganization and pure disarray, because it's very difficult to plan accordingly. And even when you try to plan, you cannot predict what will happen, because sometimes you will have certain surprises that come up. And the main issue when it comes to managing life admin is that, as mentioned, everything just becomes very overwhelming, and it's to a point where you just can't really deal with it anymore. Now, when it comes to managing life admin, sensory overload doesn't really help, because, of course, this increases the cognitive load that's required to stay organized. And there are certain individuals of autism who also have ADHD and anxiety. And when you have ADHD combined with that as well, it's very difficult to focus on one thing at a time, because your brain is just sort of going around in different places. And also with anxiety, it disrupts routines, especially because you have the tendency to procrastinate. Now, one thing I've noticed with myself is when it comes to managing life admin, if there are times where I am unable to do certain things or I procrastinate, I do feel useless and my self-esteem decreases, because I feel that I am not capable or I am second-guessing my abilities. And sometimes a part of me questions, why can't I manage like neurotypical people? Because, of course, if you were to say to most neurotypical people that you can do certain tasks, they would question what's wrong with you, especially because when you look at them, you know, most of them do full-time jobs, they have kids, they have pets, and they can somehow juggle everything. Whereas with people like us, we can't do it as easily as they can. We need time. And this is the thing, is we need time, we need support. And with understanding, as well as a form of structure and realistic expectations, daily life can become a bit more manageable. So there are ways in which you can manage autism and life admin. So one thing that I would say is very important is making sure you have a support system. And for me personally, I'm lucky that my mum is my support system. So if, say, for example, I'm coming home from work and I'm too tired to cook anything, she would cook, or, you know, she would just help me with my laundry in terms of just putting my clothes in the washer, and then I just handle the rest. And it just takes the stress and the burden away, especially because I do have a tendency to want to do tasks even when I'm tired. And then at times I just procrastinate because I simply don't have the energy. And the same thing even applies when I'm doing personal fitness, because recently I've started doing exercise. So I now alternate between doing indoor biking as well as stretching. And what I try to do is, you know, do it as regularly as I can every week. So if I come home early after work between, say, 6 or 6:30, I fit in 5 minutes of indoor biking. Or if I'm having a late shift or something, I try to do 5 minutes of stretching in the office, so at least I'm not just sitting around on my desk all the time. Another thing that helps is having a plan. So Samsung Calendar and Samsung Reminder are practically the two life-saving apps I have, because I can organize my events, I can organize my to-do lists. And one thing that's really great is the fact that I can color code, I can highlight, especially when plans change, and I can also put little cutesy stickers on my calendar, which I like to do because, for one, I like customizing my technology, and two, having stickers actually makes me notice all the little events and all the little to-dos that are coming up, and that's really great for organization. There is also an app that I have recently downloaded called Neurolist. So although this has AI, and I'm not a big fan of AI, in this case Neurolist helps you organize all of your tasks. So there are, of course, a range of tasks that you can sort of organize. So, you know, you've got different categories. You've got chores, work, health, productivity, fun, relationships, learning, mindfulness, and other. So if you pick a specific category like chores, you have a list that sort of organizes the little things you have to do. So for example, if say I pick chores and it takes 120 minutes to do it, the app will ask me how difficult or how easy it is for me to complete the task. And then, of course, you can set your reminders, you can set your subtask durations, and you can sync your Neuro list with your calendar. And then, of course, you can use the app to basically organize all your subtasks, which includes gathering your dirty laundry, sorting your clothes, loading your washing machine and adding your soap or detergent, running the cycle, transferring the clothes to the dryer, running the dryer cycle, and then folding and putting away your clean clothes. So once you break it down, it just makes things easier. And I think another thing that kind of helps is just taking things one step at a time, because for me personally, when you're taking on too much at once, it increases stress. And I know, especially because in terms of work, when I used to do my old job, for example, I would take on, say, 100. Well, not really 100, but it would feel like I was taking on 100 different tasks. So I was one of those people trying to do more than what I could realistically do. And sometimes I would have colleagues trying to help me. And, you know, I guess in the sense of work, if you do have a supportive team, it helps you because, you know, people can divide the workload so work gets done efficiently. So I guess for those with autism, I'm not really sure about autism in this case, but for those mainly with ADHD, having a body double helps. So sometimes when there's an instance where I'm procrastinating or find it difficult to do simple tasks, I like putting on certain YouTubers. So there's an autistic YouTuber I love watching called Dana Anderson, and she does these body doubling videos where she's like doing chores or just talking in the background, and having that on as I'm doing certain tasks actually helps me because it's almost like I have a friend kind of helping me as I'm trying to sort my shit out. And yeah, having a body double kind of helps. But for me personally, those are sort of the main things. And I suppose another thing that kind of helps for those who like writing, maybe writing down your tasks and just writing about what you've achieved, because you don't have to feel like you're failing, and you're not going to fail if you don't get things done, because everyone has a different pace and such when it comes to doing certain tasks. So anyway, although this was a short episode, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed me waffling on, because this is a habit when I do the podcast. And of course, I will see you in the next few weeks where I'm going to be talking about the topic of autism and inadequacy. So as always, please ensure that you enjoy the rest of your weekend, get as much rest as you can, especially because for most people, they return to work on the Monday, which is the 5th of January, because of course, as the Christmas and New Year's period ends, we have to go back to the grind. So, bye for now.